Welcome back to my view from the piano bench. Thanks for joining me. I do this every Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. here on my Joel Holt's Notes YouTube channel, along with Piano for My Friends every Thursday evening at 7. And for this, I just kind of share perspectives or stories or ideas about making music and things that hopefully you can relate to no matter where you are in relation to actually being a musician, which is actually what I'm going to talk about, being a musician. Oh, my goodness. Thank you for all of you who support and encourage me via the links available on the support page of my website. You'll see the link to that in the video description. It's much appreciated, all of you who do. And any drop in the tip jar, there's the PayPal, there's the Venmo, or a kind of recurring take on the tip jar in the Patreon. Thank you so much for considering. So, every week we have a topic, and today's topic is not full-time, but all the time. Can you guess where I'm going with this? Probably. So, occasionally it happens that I get cornered about, what do you do for a job, Joe? And even though I wasn't planning on putting my hand on my fist like this and having this sort of look, it's kind of how it comes across. You know, it's like, so Joe, I just glasses, look over them, whatever. And I've always struggled with that. And I tend to, there are times to provide detailed explanations of things, like I can do that here, but I don't think that in response to that question, that's the time to have that sort of detailed discussion of something, because there's really little point oftentimes, because the person who asked that, maybe they're curious, but for the most part, their mind's made up, or at least they're looking through a set of lenses that's going to be challenging to see from my side of the street. And despite that, I always get drawn in and I try to explain it anyway. Like I can really get through? Probably not. there's kind of a reference that people can relate to with regard to work. Maybe a little bit. So, question is, what is work? So, in the view, and this is not really maybe even fair of me, and hopefully it's not cynical, but as I look at how people tend to view work in sort of a mainstream sense, which is about making money, right? And especially from the angle that the question comes to me, what do you do for a job, Joe? It kind of seems to me like this, that work is something you do, usually for someone else, that's compartmentalized toward making money, so that you can first take care of your needs and then your wants, or something like that. I really don't have any idea. Does that sound fair? Feel free to feedback with me. And it boils down to, for me, I play piano for a living. To which the person inquiring of me responds either tacitly or openly, but that's not work. Sing us a song. You're the piano man. Well, don't ask me to sing. I want to keep my job. But anyway, sing us a song tonight. For we're all in the mood for a melody, and you've got us feeling all right. So, how is this piano man earning money? What is it about what he does that allows him to earn money? Yeah, people put bread in his jar. Not sliced wonder, by the way, but you knew that. And he also gets paid by the owner, whatever he gets paid. Kind of by the hour rate, right? So, what is it about the piano man that earns money? Well, if you want to generalize it, the path to earning money is, and insert the person who is inquiring to me about what my job is, and he'll butt in after I say, the path to earning money is, and he'll say, get a job. Well, what about, right? The path to earning money is providing benefit. And that's something that, this helps me understand what I do, but it's also about any job. That if you want to be paid for something, be useful, be beneficial, provide something positive, benefit in some way. And then you find ways to get compensated for it. I guess that's part of the musician thing, where sometimes you have to find ways, or remind people, or have some structure or mechanism that kind of reinforces, there is some value to this, right? And of course, service providers provide benefit, whatever that service is. Doctor, lawyer, plumber, musician, and then my friend over here butts in again and says, oh, but during the day, what do you do during the day? And then I make the mistake of actually trying to explain what I do during the day. And that goes absolutely nowhere. All right. So, one of the people who I had not quite this conversation with, but something kind of along those lines with my dad, out of 100% parental concern. Growing up to be a musician is not typically what a blue-collar-ish working parent. My dad spent his career in the Marine Corps, and he would have been there into his 90s if they had let him. But it's just not one of those things that falls into that category. But my dad would say, why don't you get a real estate license or be an accountant and play your music on the side? And again, it's parental concern. It's a little bit different, but he was seeing through his lenses. Of course, my mother did say to me 30 years ago or so, Joe, if I had known you were going to make a career out of playing the piano, I would have never given you piano lessons. Really? Just kidding. She wasn't entirely, but my parents were very supportive. But you know how that parental concern was. And my dad did something kind of sneaky when I was 18 or 19. He had said that he thought it would be a good idea for me to go to H&R Block in the fall when they have a school, little, 2-month curriculum or something about doing taxes. And he had a good explanation for it, and I bought it. It was like, well, if you're going to be self-employed, you're going to have to really know how to do your own taxes. And, if you don't have to hire someone to do them, why don't you learn yourself? Here's a chance. Oh, Okay, cool. So I went to H&R Block Tax School probably in the fall of 1978, now that I think about it. So I was 18 years old. And then at the end of the tax school, I'm like, okay, great, see you later. And then, no, don't leave yet. Now we got to talk about your work schedule. And I'm like, what work schedule? Of course, what I didn't know was if you take their tax school and you go to work for them, you don't have to pay for the school. And I'm like, oh, all right, what's the worst that could happen? Or what's the best that could happen? And by the way, I learned during that one season, which is I think the only job I had in my life that wasn't related to music, that one tax season, that I suck as an employee. Man, I don't have the right mindset. And I admire, no, truly, I admire anyone who like navigates that world and deals with people over top of you who don't know what they're doing and all of that stuff. So eventually I figured out what to say to my dad. That I don't know if it appeased him, but it made the suggestions about selling real estate stop. And I said, hey, Pop, I have my hands full with one career. How do you expect me to manage two? And it's like, oh, good. I found the right thing to say. So going back to, that was a bit of a parenthesis, the mistake I make is to try to actually explain what I do during the day, because the person I'm talking to is looking through different lenses. But what I do during the day is what I do to support my ability to perform. There's so much more that goes into being a musician than what you're actually getting paid for. That's the small part of your time. But then my friend who's still trying to figure out what my job is has this sort of tacit idea. Maybe he doesn't say it, but like my friend Hank plays in a band in a bar on the weekend, and he has a job. Okay, that's not what this is at all, right? And of course, that was kind of what my dad was alluding to. So, in the pandemic, you know this if you follow me, and I did a lot of blog entries about it. I've talked about it on this stream and others that came before it. I understood quickly that this pandemic for me was a sabbatical that I never thought I'd get, where I had this time that I didn't have to do the things beyond just the things I have time to do and have to do, but the things I really, really want to do. And that big thing was practice. Practice and get deeper. Because it's not just about making money. And in fact, it's not about making money, except for that there's a necessity to make money. So you kind of plug those things into those slots as best you can, and make it work as best you can. But it's about the connection to the larger thing. And I was able to like double my practice time, and it's really disappointing now that I can't practice at that pace anymore. I'm still trying to figure out how, but I need to petition, I don't know, the Weather Service or somebody to give me an extra 4 hours in a day so that I can get that done. But, a lot of people didn't know what to do with themselves when they were locked down. And, a lot of people watched Netflix, and I would occasionally look on Facebook and see what everyone's doing, which a lot of times was nothing. And oh my goodness, I do not relate to that whatsoever. Little parentheses, and I shared this with some of you. The pandemic was, in addition to a time to increase my practice time, was a time to create projects and and rehearse, which is different than practice. It's not the same thing. And get together with people, and several projects have come out of that for me. And I was just sharing with a friend earlier today that coming out of the pandemic was like having all these little legs running in the air, because all these things that weren't happening before that I had time to develop. The Blossom Deary Tribute Project was one of them. We spent a lot of time going through tunes and coming up with approaches and building that rapport and all of that. But all these little legs are spinning, and then the ground comes up and meets, and then off they go. So it's really an interesting time. But I remember seeing an interview, or at least one kind of famous rock musician in some famous band, and I can't tell you who. But what he said was just so disheartening, so sad, and to my spirit, so wrong. That what was he doing during the pandemic, since he couldn't play when he couldn't tour with his band? I just sit and watch TV all day with my family, every day. Really? Oh my goodness. Maybe he needs a job. Look, did I say that? Oh my goodness. So what is it about making music? It's like accepting a calling that you devote yourself to. You essentially devote your life to it. And that's probably what I need to say first before I say anything else. I think I need to, next time this kind of conversation comes to me, I need to start with that part. And I'll say it again. It's like accepting a calling that you devote your life to, which is probably what I need to say initially before all that other stuff happens. watch what happens. You know that song? You know, I intended to, good morning, pull these lyrics up. I think I know them. Wait a minute, or did I write them here? Oh, I don't know where anything is. Oh, here they are. I did. I was prepared. So, how do the lyrics start for that song? Let someone start believing in you. Let him hold out his hand. Let him touch you and watch what happens. So, what if that someone is yourself, right? When you believe in yourself, you believe that what you do has value. And if something has value, then why can't you be paid for it? And you start believing in yourself, or if you believe in someone or something, you invest time, right? You devote yourself to it. You prioritize it. You're not just doing it simply to keep score of what you're getting. Although you do have to keep score of what you're getting, don't you? Right? But you do it because you're following your heart. You believe in what you're following. And you know me, you've heard me talk. One common theme of everything that comes out of my mouth is it's bigger than us, individually or even collectively. But it's certainly bigger than me. It's not about me. I have a part in it. And then I'm taken care of, right? And it doesn't require a specific dogma of belief, but in the bottom foundation of it, it certainly is belief, isn't it? You gotta believe, right? Uh, so the result of that, if you believe in what you do, and it's interesting, I just started listening to an audiobook today, independent of uh, doing this. Uh, and I don't usually listen to audiobooks. I don't have that kind of attention span, but I'm finding it's easier to do that while I'm driving than uh, sit down and read a book and sit still when I want to be practicing. And it's hard to listen to music when I'm driving, especially at night, because believe it or not, listening to music when I'm the least bit tired makes me sleepy. It's a surefire way to fall asleep at the wheel for me. So I'm reading this book about, you know, what is it called? Everything you need to know about or how to whatever in the new music business. And there are all kind of books that have come out more recently when everything has really changed in the music business. And it's interesting, but it just comes back to him making the point, the author, to all these people who want to be, you know, famous, or they want to be successful, or they want to play the stadiums, or they want to be discovered. It's like, hey man, it's not about that. No. You're doing this because you have to do it. And his measure, this fellow's measure of success is the same as mine, which is, if you can find a way to support yourself doing it, you've succeeded. Have I succeeded? Maybe barely, you know, but I'm still doing it, you know, and that's the deal. But what he has to let people know is there's all this stuff you have to do in support of making music, because you are a small business as an independent musician, or what they say is an indie position. And if you're one of the crazy percentage, 95 or 82 or 97 or 91 or whatever percent of small businesses that fail, if you fail as an indie musician, you just keep going. You just, you know, oh, I could play this tune. I could. pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and fail again. I'll start all over again. No, no, you just keep going. Oh my goodness. So, as an indie musician, you were a small business, and the department head of every department, and the staff of every department. So this is where right away it's like, what in the heck do I say to you if you say, what do you do for a job? I administer this music business. Well, my friend Hank plays in the bar. Okay, forget Hank, right? Don't forget Hank. We love Hank, whoever Hank is. But he is, feeding his soul and doing something he loves to do that he's not able to devote his life to. He makes really probably a more sensible choice. I didn't write this down, but I guess I can stick this in here. So years ago, a musician that I was working regularly with, who had a busy day gig and played on the weekends and whenever he could, and didn't always have musically the I's dotted and the T's crossed, and it made me frustrated at times, trying to interact musically, and sometimes I would actually express that, and kind of, I guess, a little similar to my dad. Like, I found something to say. I don't really know if it had impact. What? It's like, when you're coming to the gig, you're coming to the gig to get away from the grind. I'm coming to the grind, right? This is it's a different thing for me. But anyway, between following your heart and putting out all the fires and all the stuff that you're doing, you're really just off to the races. And what that business stuff does is it allows you to devote yourself to the art, because it's not just the business stuff you're doing. And I'm glad that this book that I've started listening to does kind of delineate, like, well, one of the things that I heard him say today was he wouldn't recommend this to too many people. He said, if you have to have a day gig while you're getting yourself situated, don't accept the promotion, don't do anything that entrenches you in that side, because you're doing the day gig to be able to make ends meet until you can get to the point where you can begin to at a basic level support yourself making music as you grow into it. But he says that another way of doing it, and he wouldn't recommend it to most people because most people, particularly musicians, don't have the discipline, but you can have this 1-year plan where if you're able to get a really nice paying job, and it's a job that's demanding of your time, and you really don't, the things that really get in the way of playing music, but you do it for a year, and you live well underneath your means, so that you can save like 6 months worth of, being able to support yourself. And then you cut yourself loose. And when he talks about it, he kind of said like equal portions of the long day. And he structured like what your 12-hour workday is going to be. And none of that 12 hours involves performing, right? And he kind of divided it fairly well between all the administrative stuff and practicing. Developing it, because that's a big part of it. So see, that's not entirely lost on the contemporary generation. But the balancing act of that is always a struggle, and particularly because when you're passionate about being a musician, that artistic temperament usually doesn't instill a lot of business sense or business traits in you. And one of the things that I did in my 20s, my early 20s, was I put myself in situations where I would learn how to do the business thing. And a great tool I had was lesson barter. Now, back in the 1980s, piano lessons were more of a thing than they are now. And lots of people give their kids piano lessons. They still do now, but piano's not, part of the culture. Think of it really, once you pass Elton John and Billy Joel, you don't really have popular music centered around an acoustic piano. But in the 80s, that was still the case. And I would have lesson barter with a business consulting firm and with a sales manager, and I would learn the things that how to make the business work. But another thing that I did was I was working in as a teacher for one of the shopping mall organ stores, the Lowry organ store in the Cherry Hill Mall in New Jersey. And this is really going back. If you're old enough, you'll remember when every shopping mall had an organ store, and sometimes two competing brands on different ends of the mall, and there'd always be somebody out front playing to kind of draw your attention. And if you weren't careful, you wound up in the store and you were getting demoed, right? You weren't being the demo, you were being given a demo, and before you knew it, you just signed this contract on this organ to go in your house. Those days are gone. But I was teaching for one of those mall organ stores, the Lowry store, I told you which one, and just doing the lessons in the back. That's a whole nother subject that I probably should talk about at some time. Teaching at Lowry. But they were having a particularly, rough period of turnover, and they offered me part-time sales hours. And I had the same response then that you've heard me say about, say, the music therapy opportunity I was given. It's like, here's a chance to learn something, right? So I put myself through that, and it'd be uncomfortable being more assertive than I would want to be and stuff. But invaluable things that I learned from that, like doing basically like a lead book, right? Where you make contact with somebody and you record that contact, and then you don't bother them. We were given lots of latitude as to how we did it, but there was a structure where, like, at least once a month you had to make contact with the person and you had to document and stuff. And for me, it was just kind of organizing that you're staying on the radar screen until the right opportunity comes for whatever that happens going to happen. And in the Lowry world, what they wanted to do was upgrade you as many times as they could. But darn if I didn't take. Well, of course, I took the lead book concept with me, particularly when I was beginning to build my network once I was certified as a music therapist. But I did this other places too, of senior communities, and got to the point quickly where I was managing 30 different communities concurrently, having contracts. They are typically once a month or sometimes twice. And yeah, some things just happened because you get referrals. Sometimes the phone rings, But when I was doing the 400 to 600 gigs a year on average, counting all the things I was doing, a lot of that's because I made it happen, and I learned how to do the business stuff. But it's still a struggle for all musicians, balancing all of that out. While that person who's still trying to figure out what I do says to me, well, then get a job. Oh, were you talking about me behind my back? Oh, probably. talk of the town. Hmm. But I do have a job. Get a job anyway. But you know what I noticed? I mean, what I didn't do and I haven't done? I haven't actually done here what I would typically do, that I say, I get drawn into. I try to explain actually in detail the things I'm doing. Why does it take that much time? Why can't you? And you go through all this stuff and it's like, stop. So that's not the path. But I'll give you an example. There have been a few times, a few periods where, back when I was doing the Cherry Hill Mall every day of the week in the food court, and I actually was renting office space in the town. I had a little teaching studio, and I had a little bit of pad of money to play with, and I had some part-time employee help, and I thought about doing that again, and I really can't afford it, if I did it. And I thought about doing it again some years ago. And in the church where I was, at that point, that was the church where I was serving for a while, half-time on staff as worship arts director. And I approached this nice woman in the church who was very helpful and very nice. And I said, you think I could pay you to do some, my office stuff for me and help me out? So she said, okay, well, make lists of things you're thinking about and doing, and let me take a look at it. So all I did was I sat down, and just the things that I could think of that I was trying to manage, the things that came to mind. It wasn't really in order, and it wasn't comprehensive, and I didn't list everything. But okay, this, and this file, and this send, and this manage, and this do, and this organize, and this. It made this whole big long list. That again was not comprehensive, but it made the point, right? And what she said was, well, I showed it to my husband. He said, you can't do that. That's a full-time job. I knew that, of course. So a full-time job is a portion of what I do, other than what I'm doing to actually get paid. Okay, fine. So going back to the pandemic, the pandemic helped my perspective because it allowed me to devote myself to those things. And I can say that I'll say this much. In that kind of ideal time when there's no other stressors, and I'm not even talking about anything to do with administrating a business, 4 hours a day to practice, not counting rehearsing, right? Just sitting, and then 4 hours a day of promotional work. That's what takes a ton of time, if you're really going to do it, right? And that's your starting point. Of course, there's other administrative things, and there's rehearsals, and there's networking, and all that time that you spend, certainly full-time hours and then some. But of course, you haven't played a gig yet. Oh, which is actually why the pandemic was cool, because you didn't have to play the gigs. Of course, playing the gig is what it's all about. Not just because it makes money, but because that's the connection you make with people and such. So it's ridiculous. Because, if you're going to pay the bills, most days of the week, you kind of have to do things to make money too. So, what I say, being a musician is a requisite is having rose-colored glasses that you're born with permanently affixed to your head. And that's all you see through. And you always see those possibilities. Because we love show business. Actually, no, it's not about show business. But what did I say? me the show. Just give me the chance to play music for you. That's all. Share the space. And hopefully you get something out of it. And that's what it's all about. Charlie Brown? Yeah. So, all right. Sometimes I don't know what to think about these Wednesday night videos. But hopefully it was interesting. But if you just want to hear me play piano, which is where I'm more effective when I keep my mouth shut, that's tomorrow night. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being here. And I've got my schedule page on my website updated through the end of the year and starting beyond. And yeah, I've moved it over to my website itself, the shows page. For years, I did it on a blog where I had to sort of format everything. It took so much time. And for a website that's actually designed for musicians, it's sort of a plug and play and save your venues, and it's much easier to do. So I should have made this switch before. So check out what I'm doing, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks.